What hurts more than being alone, is being with someone who slowly makes you feel like you are. I remember the way it all began, like every beautiful love story does. There were late-night conversations that felt endless, laughter that came so easily, and a connection that felt almost too perfect to question. It was the kind of love you read about, the kind you believe will last forever. They looked at me like I was the only person in the world, and for a while, I believed it. In the beginning, love felt like safety. Their voice was home, their presence was peace. Every message, every call, every small moment carried meaning. I thought, this is it. This is what love is supposed to feel like. And maybe, for a moment, it was real, or maybe it was just the illusion of something I wanted so badly to believe in. But slowly, almost invisibly, things began to change. It didn't happen all at once. Toxic love never does. It creeps in quietly, disguising itself as concern, as passion, as intensity. The same person who once made me feel special began to make me question myself. Why are you talking to them? Why didn't you reply faster? Why are you acting different? At first, I thought it was love, jealousy mistaken for care, control mistaken for protection. I told myself, they just love me too much. But love shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells. The laughter became less frequent. The warmth started to fade. Conversations turned into arguments, and arguments turned into silence. And that silence, it was louder than any words we ever spoke. It was heavy, suffocating, and lonely. I started losing pieces of myself without even realizing it. I changed the way I spoke, the way I acted, even the way I thought, just to avoid conflict, just to keep the peace. I convinced myself that if I loved harder, tried more, gave more, things would go back to how they used to be. Because that's what we're taught, right? That love is about sacrifice. That love means staying, no matter how much it hurts. But no one tells you that sometimes, staying is what breaks you the most. There were moments when I looked at them and didn't recognize the person I fell in love with. And then there were moments when I looked at myself, and didn't recognize who I had become. That was the scariest part. Not the fights, not the tears, but the realization that I was disappearing in a love that was supposed to make me feel alive. And yet, I stayed. Because toxic love has a way of holding you hostage with memories. You remember the good times, the laughter, the way they used to look at you, and you hold on to that version of them, hoping it will come back. You ignore the pain because you're in love with the potential, not the reality. But love should not be a constant battle between your heart and your peace. One day, something inside me shifted. It wasn't loud or dramatic. There was no big fight, no final goodbye. It was just a quiet moment, where I realized I was tired. Tired of crying, tired of explaining, tired of feeling like I wasn't enough for someone who once made me feel like I was everything. And in that moment, I understood something powerful. Love is not supposed to hurt like this. Yes, love requires effort. Yes, it requires patience. But it should never require you to lose yourself. It should never make you feel small, unworthy, or alone while standing right next to someone. I realized that the most painful part of a toxic relationship isn't the way they treat you, it's the way you start treating yourself because of it. You start doubting your worth. You start blaming yourself for things you didn't break. You start believing that this is the best you deserve. But it's not. Walking away wasn't easy. It felt like letting go of a dream, of a story I had already written in my heart. It felt like losing something that once meant everything. But sometimes, losing them, is the only way to find yourself again. And when I finally did walk away, something unexpected happened. The silence that once felt suffocating, became peaceful. The loneliness I feared, turned into freedom. And the love I was desperately searching for in someone else, I slowly started finding within myself. Because real love doesn't confuse you. It doesn't control you. It doesn't make you question your worth. Real love feels like peace, like respect, like being seen and valued for who you truly are. So if you ever find yourself in a love that feels more like pain, remember this. You deserve a love that heals, not one that hurts. You deserve a love that builds you, not one that breaks you. And most importantly, you deserve a love that never makes you forget who you are. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do in love, is to walk away, in the beginning, it never feels like something that could hurt you. It feels like magic, pure, effortless, and almost unreal. You meet someone, and suddenly the world seems brighter. Conversations flow like poetry, and even silence feels comfortable. You find yourself smiling at your phone, replaying their words in your mind, holding on to every small moment as if it's something rare and precious. It's the kind of beginning that makes you believe in forever. They notice the little things about you. The way you laugh, the way you think, the things you never thought anyone would understand. And when they say, "I've never met anyone like you," it doesn't feel like a line, it feels like truth. You feel chosen, special, seen. That kind of attention can feel like love, deep and undeniable. But somewhere between the late-night talks and the promises of always, something begins to shift. Not suddenly, not loudly, but slowly, quietly. The same intensity that once felt beautiful starts to feel overwhelming. The constant messages turn into expectations. The care begins to feel like pressure. And the attention that once made you feel special starts to feel like something you have to earn. At first, you don't question it. You tell yourself this is what passionate love looks like. That maybe love isn't always easy, maybe it comes with complications, with misunderstandings, with moments that don't feel as perfect as the beginning. So you ignore the discomfort. You overlook the small things, the tone changes, the subtle criticisms, the moments where you feel slightly less like yourself. You hold on to how it started. That's the part that keeps you there. Because when something begins like magic, you believe that magic can't just disappear. You believe it must still be there, hidden beneath the confusion, waiting to come back. And so, instead of seeing the change for what it is, you chase the version of love you first experienced. You try to recreate those early days, thinking if you just love a little harder, understand a little more, give a little more of yourself, everything will return to how it once felt. Without realizing that sometimes, the beginning wasn't a promise of what love would be, but a glimpse of something that was never meant to last at first. It's almost impossible to tell the difference between love and control. They can look so similar when they arrive wrapped in care, in attention, in the feeling of being deeply wanted. When someone says, "I just worry about you," or "I only want what's best for you," it sounds like love. It feels like someone is protecting you, valuing you, placing you above everything else in their life. And in the beginning, that kind of attention feels comforting. They want to know where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, not because it seems intrusive, but because it feels like they care. You tell yourself, "They're just looking out for me." You mistake intensity for depth, and closeness for connection. But slowly, those small questions begin to feel different. "What are you wearing?" turns into, "Why are you wearing that?" "Who are you talking to?" becomes, "Why are you talking to them?" "I miss you," starts to sound like, "Why weren't you available?" The tone shifts, even if the words don't seem too harsh at first. And without realizing it, you begin to adjust yourself. You change how you respond, how you behave, how much of yourself you show, just to avoid upsetting them, just to keep things calm, just to keep the love from slipping away. That's when care begins to turn into control. Real love gives you space to be who you are. It trusts you without needing constant proof. It allows you to exist outside the relationship without making you feel guilty for it. But control doesn't do that. Control tightens its grip slowly, making you feel like every choice you make needs approval, like every action needs explanation. And the hardest part is, it doesn't always feel wrong right away. Because it's mixed with moments of affection. After the tension, they apologize. After the pressure, they hold you close. They remind you how much they love you, how important you are to them. And those moments pull you back in, making you question your own feelings instead of questioning their behavior. You start thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is just how relationships are. Maybe this is what love looks like when someone really cares. But deep down, there's a quiet voice inside you that feels the difference. A voice that knows love should feel freeing, not restricting. That knows you shouldn't have to shrink yourself to be loved. And yet, that voice becomes easier to ignore. The more you confuse control with care. It's not always the loud fights or the obvious moments that leave the deepest scars. Sometimes, it's the quiet things, the things no one else can see, that slowly begin to break you. The way their words start to change, becoming sharper, colder, more dismissive. The way conversations that once felt warm and safe begin to feel like something you have to prepare for, like you're stepping into a space where anything you say could be used against you. At first, it might be small comments. Little remarks that seem harmless on the surface but carry a weight you can't ignore. You're too sensitive. You always overthink. Why can't you just be normal about things? You laugh it off, or you stay quiet, telling yourself it's not a big deal. But those words don't disappear. They stay with you, echoing in your mind long after the conversation ends. And then there's the silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the comfortable quiet you once shared, but a heavy, intentional silence. The kind that feels like punishment. The kind that makes you question what you did wrong, even when you're not sure you did anything at all. They stop replying, stop calling, stop acknowledging you, and you're left there, staring at your phone, replaying every moment, trying to figure out how things shifted so suddenly. Silence becomes a weapon. It teaches you to chase answers, to apologize even when you're unsure why, to carry the weight of fixing something you didn't break. Neglect starts to settle in, slowly but deeply. The effort fades. The attention disappears. The same person who once made you feel like a priority now makes you feel like an option. Plans are cancelled without explanation, messages go unanswered, and your presence no longer feels valued in the way it once did. You begin to feel invisible, even when you're right there. And the most painful part is how it changes you. You start doubting your own feelings. You question whether you're asking for too much, whether you're expecting too much, whether your needs are somehow unreasonable. You begin to silence yourself before they even have the chance to. You become smaller in your own story. It's not just what they say or don't say, it's what it does to your sense of self. How it chips away at your confidence, your voice, your ability to trust your own emotions. How it turns love into something that feels uncertain, unstable, and exhausting. And without even realizing it, you start carrying the weight of a relationship that no longer carries you. There comes a moment in every story like this, a quiet, almost invisible moment, where something inside you begins to wake up. It's not loud, not dramatic, not the kind of realization you see in movies. There's no final argument, no slammed doors, no clear ending. It's just a feeling, a deep, undeniable awareness that something isn't right anymore. You find yourself sitting in the middle of it all, maybe after another argument, or maybe during one of those long silences, and instead of trying to fix things like you always do, you just feel tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that settles into your heart. The kind that comes from trying too hard for too long, from giving too much without receiving the same in return. And for the first time, you stop making excuses. You stop saying, "They didn't mean it." You stop saying, "It's just a phase." You stop convincing yourself that things will magically go back to how they used to be. Because deep down, you already know, they won't. You begin to see things clearly, without the filter of love blinding you. The patterns you once ignored become impossible to unsee. The way they speak to you, the way they make you feel, the way your happiness always seems to depend on their mood. You realize that love has slowly turned into something heavy, something painful, something that drains you more than it fulfills you. And that realization, it hurts. Because it means facing the truth you've been avoiding. It means accepting that the person you fell in love with is no longer the person standing in front of you, or maybe they never truly were. It means understanding that what you've been holding onto isn't the reality of your relationship, but the memory of what it once felt like. You start to notice the distance, not just between you and them, but within yourself. The way you hesitate before speaking, the way you hold back your thoughts, the way you've learned to silence your own needs just to keep the peace. You see how much you've changed, how much of yourself you've set aside in the name of love. And suddenly, love doesn't feel like comfort anymore. It feels like pressure, like anxiety, like something you have to survive rather than something you get to enjoy. That's when it becomes undeniable. This isn't what love is supposed to feel like. Not the constant overthinking, not the emotional exhaustion, not the quiet sadness that lingers even in their presence. And in that moment of clarity, something shifts inside you. A realization that love, no matter how strong it once felt, should never feel like suffering. There's a point where your heart stands at a crossroads, even if your life looks the same on the outside. Nothing dramatic has to happen. No final betrayal, no explosive ending. Just a quiet shift inside you where you begin to understand that loving someone should not come at the cost of losing yourself. And for the first time, you start to question not how much you love them, but how little you've been loving yourself. It's a difficult thing to admit, that you stayed longer than you should have, that you accepted less than you deserved, that you kept choosing someone who kept choosing not to see your worth. But there's also something powerful in that awareness, because it means you're finally seeing the truth, even if it hurts. You begin to recognize the patterns you once ignored. The way you kept giving chances, hoping things would change. The way you held on to apologies that were never followed by action. The way you convinced yourself that patience and sacrifice would somehow turn pain into something beautiful. But love is not meant to be a place where you constantly have to prove your value. And slowly, your focus begins to shift. Not toward them, but toward yourself. Toward the parts of you that were neglected, silenced, and pushed aside just to keep the relationship alive. You start remembering who you were before all of this, the version of you that laughed freely, spoke without hesitation, and didn't feel the need to question their own worth. That version of you isn't gone. It's just been waiting. Choosing yourself doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels terrifying. It feels like letting go of something that once meant everything, like stepping into the unknown without any guarantee of what comes next. There's fear in the silence, in the space they leave behind, in the absence of something that once consumed your entire world. But within that fear, there's also a quiet strength. A strength that grows every time you stop yourself from going back. Every time you remind yourself why you left. Every time you choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over temporary comfort. You begin to understand that love should never require you to shrink, to beg, or to break just to be accepted. That your worth is not something someone else gets to define based on how they treat you. And as you continue to choose yourself, piece by piece, you start rebuilding something you didn't even realize you had lost. A sense of identity, a sense of peace, a sense of love that finally begins from within.